When it comes to the UFC and fixed fights, this is a topic I've covered before in the past. Like I said before, it's basically just like pro boxing, where the majority, 95% of the fights are legit, but there are select events that are rigged for different reasons, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But first off, let's take a look at this footage. As you see here, Misha Cirkunov go against Volkan Oezdemir. This took place earlier today in Stockholm, Sweden. Take a look at this footage. Fight only lasts a total of 28 seconds. I'm going to get right to the point, to the very end. And before playing the footage itself, of course, you have the occultic Monster Drink logo in the middle of the octagon. Let's take a look at this footage. I mean, right here. This is what knocked out Misha Cirkunov. Not a fist laying to the back of the head. Basically, the front fingers. The fingers, front part of the glove, hitting the side of the head and knocks him out. Unbelievable. Let's take a look here. I'm going to play this again. And this is all it took to knock him out? No way. No way. That's in slow motion. Again, that is the front of the hand. Not a full punch. More like a 3/4 type of punch. With, again, the front of the hand landing on the side of the head. I mean, and that's all it's gonna take to knock him out. There's another close up, and right there, this is the front of the hand. Knuckles are up here, and that took him out. I'm not buying this for 1 second. I have two theories on this. I believe something was wrong with Misha Cirkunov before the fight, and they say, we want you to go out there, perform. We're going to pay you, but you're going to have to go down. We're not going to cancel this fight like Bellator did with Emelianenko and Mitrione. You're going to have to go out there and perform, or this could have been planned out well in advance. Either way, this doesn't add up. This doesn't make sense. Let's take a look. Actually, let me start from the very beginning here, and I'm going to play it nonstop. Right there. That's more or less a slap. I'm not trying to downplay the supposed fight, calling it a slap, but when you see the top of the hand come down, more of a slap than a punch, to knock somebody out, no way. Those are the fingers, the front fingers on the glove making contact, not the full brunt of a fist. Now, this is very suspicious with Volkan Oezdemir being interviewed by this correspondent for FS1, Fox Sports 1, where he totally ignores the question about the knockout punch, and he goes on about his training, which I find very suspicious. Take a listen.
28 seconds it took for you to finish this fight. Misha was rushing in, and it took one very short shot from you to put him down. Were you expecting that to be the one that knocked him out?
I've been working on my game now. I had a full camp, 12 weeks of training. Last time was a 2 weeks notice fight. So it was a short time to be ready for such a big opponent as OSP.
Okay. Again, totally ignores the question. He's asked about the punch, and he goes around the question, starts talking about his training. Very good reason. Because it wasn't a punch. I mean, that's not a punch. And this guy, if you ever seen Misha Cirkunov's past fights, this guy can fight. Okay, this guy is really good and very impressive fighter. And for this to happen to him, you know, what it all comes down to, when it comes to UFC, it's about the money. And the people pulling the strings, without question, these people are told what to do. And I'll get to that to the very end of the video from a quote from a UFC fighter, very famous former UFC fighter. Also, take a listen to Joe Rogan, of course, a very famous, announcer when it comes to the UFC. Even though I'm not a big fan of Joe Rogan's, I find it very interesting what he has to say, or what he doesn't say during this podcast after the so-called fight. Take a listen.
He's backing him up.
He's getting lit the fuck up.
He's getting lit up. Boom.
Hit him right behind the ear.
Wow. One short punch like that.
Right behind the old ear.
That's interesting.
Bam.
Wow, that's all it takes, huh?
Look at your
That's
face.
crazy, though.
Right behind the ear, you go out, huh?
Yeah, dude, I can't wait to see him versus John
But, dude,
Jones
I'm
this
telling you,
summer.
a lot of guys get hit behind the ear. To get hit behind the ear sliding to the side like that, that's crazy.
Now, he said it's crazy. He keeps saying it's crazy. And you know what that means after you hear this. Take a listen to basically Joe Rogan talking about another so-called fight that was obviously fixed between Ken Shamrock and Kimbo Slice. Let's get right to what Joe Rogan says here.
Tell you right now, that fight looked fake as fuck.
That's what I was gonna think. Literally, that's what I thought.
There's a couple things I don't like about that fight. I don't like that clinch, that long clinch that they had where they were mouth to ear. They were mouth to each other's ears for
and
a
no one was
long
really
fucking
striking.
time.
Like,
No
if
one
you're
was
Ken and
striking.
you're a wrestler, I'm popping those elbows and fucking taking you down.
How about the fact that when
He had
Ken,
him stretched out.
when
in a full
Ken
choke.
did take him down, he never hit him once. How about that? He never hit him. He had him down. He had him flattened out. He had his back, and he's not crashing him. He's not blasting him with punches.
True.
He's got him flattened out, and he's not hitting him. That doesn't make any sense.
He's
to me.
also
He also had a full choke.
I know,
didn't
but
he?
he's
To me, it looked, the whole thing, the entrance looked so suspect because he was shaking everybody's hand. It didn't look like he was about to go to a fight.
I agree.
He was about to go put on a performance.
He didn't look-
They might have told them that this is the way to generate interest in this fight, to hype it up, all the fake bad blood, like. And then the other thing that got me was the way Kimbo stopped Shamrock. That was real as fuck. I mean, he definitely
his eye was fucked up.
cracked
Yeah,
him.
I agree.
So maybe they made an agreement, and Kimbo said, "I'm gonna punch this motherfucker anyway."
So what you have here is, of course, the UFC announcer, called many fights over the years. He's going after Bellator as being, having this fixed fight between. Again, I'm gonna show a little bit of this footage before I even talk about it. Let's take a look here.
This dude.
Shamrock versus. I mean, take a look here. It looks like they're just basically sparring, not a real fight. I mean, right here, look at the body separation between Kimbo Slice and Shamrock. He doesn't use full force. You can just see his arm is not flexed. This is not a real fight. They're just going through the motions.
He's out, I think. No. Full commitment, but has crossed his ankles. Lost both hooks. Still deep, still tight. But if Ken does...
Just no real effort. You don't see the real effort. You got to watch the whole fight. I can't play the whole fight for reasons, of course, with Bellator. But if you watch the whole fight, like Joe Rogan said, it's just fake. It's just, and again, let me get back to the very beginning here with this takedown. It looks like they're just going through the motions. Okay, just nothing legit about it. You cannot fake real. There's no sense of urgency or anything that looks legit about this takedown. Again, it just looks like a seminar that they're just basically displaying on TV between these two. Now let's get to the end of the fight towards the end of the fight here, I should say, where Joe Rogan said it looked legit. And it does, with these punches where Ken Shamrock goes down, and you see famous referee John McCartney step in and stop this fight, so-called fight. Now, again, I find it very interesting. Joe Rogan, he'll question this Bellator fight, but he won't talk about, of course, the UFC. And again, when he kept saying, this is crazy, during the podcast earlier today.
He's backing him up.
He's getting lit the fuck
He's getting
up.
lit up. Boom.
Hit him right behind the ear.
Wow. One short punch like that.
Right behind the old ear.
That's interesting.
Bam.
Wow, that's all it takes, huh?
Look at
In
that.
your
That's
face.
crazy, though.
He's saying it's crazy. He can't say it's fake. And of course, is regarding the fight from the UFC because he works for Dana White UFC, so he can't go there. But he can, say what he wants about Bellator and Ken Shamrock and Kimbo Slice. And I find it very interesting as well what is said here. This is just recently. Ken Shamrock has really aged a lot. He talks about the so-called fight being fixed against Kimbo Slice. Take a listen.
The Kimbo Slice fight, what do you have to say to the people that think that it was fixed?
Well, it's listen, that to me that's sad because this is what we call realization. Things happen in fights, and
Right.
what people are used to seeing from Ken Shamrock and then seeing what they saw against Kimbo, understandably why you would think that, because you're used to seeing something different. But I've got bad knees. When I hit the ground, I don't scramble my feet very well.
Just makes excuse Excuses, excuses. That's all he does. Now, I find it very interesting talking about fixed fights. This is what I want to get into. You have former UFC fighter Wanderlei Silva talk about the UFC being fixed, being rigged. Let's get down to the comments he made. This is only back in 2015, a couple of years ago. Let's take a look here. Of course, very famous in the UFC for many, many years. Where he states, this is from his Facebook page where they're quoting him from. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll just get to the points that I want to get across with this video presentation. Either you do what they tell you or you're fired. Okay? And I will fight to the end to unmask these promoters who are deceiving the public, cheating, and taking the dignity and the honor from our sport. This is turning a pro wrestling show with fixed fights. We have to stop these guys because that's the end of the line for us. So this is coming from, again, someone that has competed for many, many years, not only in the UFC, but in MMA and different promotions. And I do understand as well, he came out approximately a few months, about 6 or 7 months later, and he retracted his comments, of course, afraid of a lawsuit. I'm sure his handlers told him, you better take back those comments, or else you'll have your butt in a sling and be in a whole lot of trouble. And that's exactly why, he had to take back these comments. Of course, he meant what he said. It's intimidation, and who has the money has the power, what it all comes down to. Also, I find it very interesting. Take a listen here to Tito Ortiz, of course, another very famous UFC fighter, and what he has to say about Wanderlei Silva's comment about the UFC being fixed.
Wanderlei talking about fixed fights. I don't know. I agree with him.
That's all you need to hear. And again, with this so-called fight as well, not only with this bogus punch, but also what is said after the so-called fight, or the non-response, as I mentioned earlier, by Volkan, Oezdemir, and also, again, what Joe Rogan said. So, putting all the pieces together, where things don't add up, things don't make sense when it comes to UFC, and I can't stress it enough. People want to, say the UFC is fixed, it's fake. And again, what it all comes down to, just like Bellator and this phony baloney fight between Shamrock and Kimbo Slice, where it looked like nothing more than, again, a demonstration, nothing more than a seminar for the general public. Just nothing but garbage. So they mix fake with real, and people can't tell the difference. One last look at this bogus knockout to conclude the video. Right there. No way. Not buying it for a second.